Hi, I'm Joe. Welcome back. This is the Ultimate Love Letter. Thank you for joining the conversation. Man will always disappoint. So today's convo is going to all be about how man will disappoint, but God never will. I was inspired by this conversation regarding a story that I read today of Gideon in the Bible. And if you know the story, Gideon was led by God to overtake the Midianites who had been ruling harshly over the Israelites. And when he gathered his army, he had like over 30,000. And God told him, you have too many. And God asked him to release those that say they are fearful. When he asked the army of men who were fearful and they could be released, 20,000 men left, leaving essentially 10,000 in his army. God came back to Gideon and said, you have too many. Still. And God said, go down to the water and I will show you who your army of men are meant to be. And Gideon watched as the men drank from the water. Most of the men put down their shields and their swords. Only a select few maintained their shields and their swords, just basically lapping up water with one hand, essentially being prepared and never for a moment being unprepared. So God told Gideon, these 300 men who lapped up the water are your men. So they won a miraculous victory that night with 300 men. I know that as we go through life, we feel that we need to heavily rely on man. And relying on man can be anything. We are relying on our employer to pay us a salary. We're relying on our wife to provide us a home and love. We are relying on our children to take care of us in our later years. But one thing that is certain is man will always disappoint. We are humans. Yes, we are created in God's image, but we are having a very human experience. And so our love, even though we may not know it, our love and the love of others is conditional. I remember I read a book once, and I can't recall the master who wrote it, but he says, get this straight. Everyone's love is conditional. I know you don't think it, you may not recognize it, but it is so. Man will disappoint, period. But the one who will never disappoint is God. So how can we move forward putting all of our trust and our faith and relying heavily solely on God for all the outcomes? And that could be possibly you're looking at your bank balance and you don't know how you're going to meet the needs. Well, then you're relying on this situation to meet the need. Understand your Father, the greatest artist of all, the most creative being, the highest, the most high, is saying, look to me. Don't look to your bank balance. I can meet the need. Think about the story of Gideon. He went to fight what would seem to be an impossible fight with a fraction of the men he thought he would need. And yet, because God was with him, and God told him, don't be afraid, I will be with you, he gained a miraculous victory. Remember how victorious and miraculous your God is. Forget about the bank balance. Focus on God. Go to God for what you need. God will make whatever is in your bank enough when you really, truly give it to him. And this doesn't suggest you just give it to God and you let everything go. No, you're giving it to God and you're saying, God, I trust you. I can see in reality on the surface, this doesn't look like enough, but I'm trusting you to make it enough. I'm trusting you to give me the ways, the ideas that perhaps I don't see. And most of the times we don't see it until we go to God. Then God will open up a way that we would have certainly have missed had we not given it to him. Then God says, now you take that step. Now you make that call. Now you reach that person, or you forgot about this resource over here. That is what happens. That is the miracles that happen when we give it to God and we're not relying on man to provide. Most of us are looking for love outside of ourselves. We're looking for a person to come that's going to bring us peace, that's going to validate our worth, that's going to fill an empty hole, a space in our life, in our heart. God is saying, no matter who comes, if you have not found me first, if you have not put me first, even when that person comes, it's not going to fill you the way you're thinking in your mind it will. It will be mediocre. It will be less than the greatness that I can give you if you can come to me first. And what happens when we're in these relationships, our spouse, our boyfriends, our girlfriends, most of the time they will disappoint. Because God is saying, if you come to me, I will never disappoint. And what that means is when we come to God first and we put him first and we're relying on him to bring us the one, for instance, then God is saying, I'm going to bring you the one that serves you wholeheartedly. And when they disappoint, and they most likely will, even that person, you're going to be completely whole and unshaken and not moved because God essentially has filled you with his love and his grace. And so now you're not easily moved because you recognize people will always disappoint you. It's okay. You're whole with God. So they're free. The loved ones that come, the marriages that come, the relationships that come, they're free to disappoint because you will recognize they're human. Their love is conditional, but someone's love is not, and that's God. And so you won't be rattled. You won't be deeply moved off of your seat when a disappointment comes in the form or from another human. You can just say, you know what? Thank you, God. Thank you. I needed to see that about you. You're no longer trying to change situations and fit individuals and circumstances into a mold of your thinking. You're just simply saying, I need to know who everyone is. God, show me who this person is. God, show me who is for me. God, show me the essence of this individual. And as they reveal themselves, you can sit comfortably where you're at and say, thank you, God, for revealing it. Now I can move accordingly. And now I'm not bothered because I'm filled with the love of God. God did not disappoint. He showed me who everyone was, and I'm thankful to God. I'm not trying to fiddle with the situation and change people. No. All I need to do is change myself, change my perspective, and then everything on the outside changes as well. Let us no longer put all our faith and all our dependence on man on the outside of ourselves. Put it all on God. Our children, perhaps you found yourself in your golden years and you're relying on your children to take care of you. Take it from me. I have a client who is in a retirement home and most children do not come. That's just the reality. But again, that is actually what God is saying. Most people will let you down. Most people will disappoint. People have lives and they're going on with their lives. You can call it selfish, you can call it whatever you want, conditional, but that is the reality. So that is why we do the inner work. So no matter what the humans, the people in our life do to us, we are safe and protected because we have given our life to God, because we are following God. Once we're following God, once we're giving it to God, then God takes care of the rest. You don't need anyone else. God will bring those that serve you along the path that will take care of you as well. But we are no longer fixated on it needs to be that person. It needs to be my children that take care of me. It needs to be my husband that takes care of the bills. It needs to be me and my one job that takes care of my household. No, you're thinking too small. God, never in the form of another human, but all your resources are with God, and let God allow whatever resources he wants to use to bless you to come. I'm thinking about, just how I was heavily relying on someone to help me with the book that I'm completing. And immediately when I say, God, I need that person because they're doing the editing, God was like, light work, I got you. Don't worry. I'll do the editing. I'll figure out the editing. And God absolutely did in like no time, in a matter of days. Now I find myself working with a publisher, a professional editor who is editing the book. That's what God does when we give it to him. And now that doesn't mean that I'm now heavily relying on the editor. Yes, God served up the editor, and now I'm thanking God for that resource. But I know that even if something was to fall through with that editor, then it's in God's will. Then God will serve up another situation where I'm taken care of. That is what it looks like when we're not depending on anyone outside of ourselves. We're not depending on a human as the end all be all, but we are giving it to God. We are saying, God, you show me whom I should be working with. God, I'm depending on you to figure out these details. God, when my employer goes and I'm laid off, I'm not frantically moved, shooken to the core of me. I know that stings. I know I was laid off several times in my life. But when we say, God, if you've closed that door because it's not the employer that's paying my bills, it's you by way of the employer paying my bills, then you are my source, then great. You close that door, so you're going to open up another one. And these bills need to be paid. So then I'm sure you're going to figure it out. You're going to tell me what I need to do to make sure that everything is taken care of. That's what it looks like when we heavily rely on God and not anything else on the outside of ourselves. I could go on this conversation, but hopefully you get the gist. The magic is in giving it to God. When God says, I am with you, believe him. Think about Gideon. He was with him in a fight where it seemed like it would have possibly took hundreds of thousands of men. But God said, no, I can do it with just a few. So think about that when you look in your bank balance and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to meet the needs next month. Think about what God can do with what you have. If God has given you that to work with, God is setting you up for a miracle. But it will only come if you trust. It will only come when you're giving it to God. It will only come when you're saying, God, you are my source, not the money in the bank, not the assets in my portfolio. It's you. So I'm going to watch as you work. Give it to God wholeheartedly. Stay open for the ways he wants to move you. And remove your eyes from man. They will certainly disappoint. Go to God. He will fill you with love. He will fill you with peace. He will fill you with shelter and protection. He will fill you with validation and worth. So then when the outside shakes you up, relationships, jobs, children, situations, you are really, to the core of you, completely still, because God is holding you, because you understand He is the source of it all, not the other way around. Thank you so much for joining this convo. We can wrap it up, sum it up right there. Go apply it to your life, and then go watch the magic unfold. I want to thank our new YouTube subscribers. We gained another dozen in like a matter of days, and I'm just floored. Thank you so much for those who are sharing your podcast, your platform. Thank you so much who are following along week after week. And just know, if you have found us here, I am deeply in prayer for you. Make sure that you are subscribed and make sure the notifications are on so you never skip an episode. Also, it's almost Valentine's Day, so I have dropped a 20% off code for worldtreasure.shop, which is a limited worldly collection of items I have collected around the world on my travels. So give your loved one a gift of something special, something unique, something that perhaps you're not finding in the country that you're at. Until next time, love yourself and love others. We'll chat again soon. Bye for now.